A very good morning, a very good afternoon, and a very good evening wherever you are watching this live stream from. Hello, my name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy. We meet here on Zoom, well, virtually on Zoom every Saturday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And the meeting is pushed live out onto our social media channels, which are on youtube.com/Hindu Academy and on facebook.com/Hindu Academy. Now, this week is a special week for people living here in the UK. We get to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee here. And whilst that has got nothing to do with Hinduism per se, we're going to see how it ties in with the focus topic of the day, which is going to be on the caste system. So if you are new to this channel, let me explain to you how this broadcast works. We run for about an hour. And first, we start off with a focus topic. We will play a little video, and then we'll do a little discussion around that area. And then we will open up for general Q&A on any topic to do with Hinduism. Now, how can you get involved? There is a number of ways. A, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Bring your fellow members, your friends and family into the conversation by inviting them to join the live stream. And B, contribute your questions, your thoughts, and your comments in the comments area, and I will pick them up live, or my team will be picking them up live. Today on the call, we've got Manish Bhai and we've got Sita Ben. Vijay Bhai is missing in action. He is out of town at the moment. And so what we will do is we will get started first with the focus topic video, and then we will launch into the Q&A session. So without any further delay, let me just share the video for the day, and I will be back shortly.
In the Hinduism, we have got this caste system, which is really bothering me a lot recently, and say like if you're born Sudras, you are condemned already before you're born, that you cannot go higher up, and there's lot of inequality in the Hinduism.
A very good question, and I'll answer it and I'll give you Swami Vivekananda's answer, not my answer. And this answer has been very helpful to me when I'm fighting the education bodies in modern times. And he gave this answer 100 years ago, very useful. He said, find me one scripture of authority of the Hindus that gives sanction to the hereditary hierarchical caste system. Hierarchical means upper, lower, and outcast. And hereditary means it's already fixed since you're born, from the time you're born. He said, show me one scripture of authority of the Hindus which has given sanction to the hereditary hierarchical caste system. You will find nothing, zero. In the Vedas, in the Bhagavad Gita, no such mention of a hierarchical hereditary caste system at all. So I just use Swami Vivekananda's teaching. You say everything I'm doing is I'm pinched from Swami Vivekananda. Nothing comes from me. I'm just kind of, rattling.
No, but just Swami Vivekananda and Gita goes together or not?
Okay, let me just explain. So you see, I use this particular argument to really knock out Edexcel board. In the London Edexcel board, they were teaching 20% of the syllabus was devoted to the teaching of hereditary hierarchical caste system as Hinduism. So I took them to task in a big meeting with 10 or 15 of them sitting around trying to knock me out, saying, no, this is necessary, Mr. Lakhani. I said, Lord, show me one scripture, show me where is the very authority. If you can't find me, take it out. They couldn't find it. Then I explained to them, the only mention of the word caste in the scriptures of authority of the Hindu tradition, in the Rig Veda, Purusha Sukta, and in the Bhagavad Gita, is as follows. It is simply a comment which says, just as different parts of the body fulfill different functions for the maintenance of this body, in the same way in society we have people with different skills, different abilities. They must use their abilities to the full for the benefit of the society. This is called, in simple English, called division of labor based on your aptitude, your ability. Every modern society that I know of uses that. They start streaming children, SATs exams and 11 plus and whatever, and GCS. They start streaming youngsters saying, you will do good in economics. Oh, you will do good in, in engineering. Oh, you'll do good in, becoming a chemist. So they already start streaming. So this is called division of labor based on your ability. This is the only mention of the idea of castes in the Bhagavad Gita or the Rig Veda. So, for example, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, they will specify who is a Brahmin. Not a person who is born in a Brahmin family. No, says the Krishna. He says a Brahmin is a person whose life is God-centered, who is content and based in truth. This is the definition of a Brahmin. So anybody can be a Brahmin if he's God-centered, if his life is based in truth and is content in nature. These are the qualities to qualify you as a Brahmin. So this is, if you like, your abilities that come into play and not your birth. There is no hierarchy as well. So this is, if you like, a very unique way of presenting the idea of hereditary hierarchical caste system. At one stage, I was asked on Radio 4 program about the caste system, because they like to put Hinduism down, especially BBC. They like to put Hinduism down. So they said, Mr. Lakhani, tell us about hereditary hierarchical caste system in the United Kingdom. I said, do you want to have the best example of hereditary hierarchical caste system in the United Kingdom? I said, yeah, sure. I said, I'll tell you the answer, provided you broadcast it. I said, we'll do that. Go on. They were surprised. What am I saying? I said, the best example of hereditary hierarchical caste system in operation in the United Kingdom is in Buckingham Palace. By mere birth, a person is considered to be fit to be the ruler of this nation, head of the state, just by mere birth. Not only head of the state, I said, head of the church too. This is hierarchical caste system squared. We can't beat you chaps. You are better than us. And they didn't broadcast that. And of course, I lost my chance of MBE straight away.
Fabulous. So there you see what an interesting video it is. So the caste system did start off as a very, very good methodology for society to run on. But then, of course, like many other things in life, it did get twisted a little bit. And so we did get no end of the stick from the West about it. But to look into this thing a little bit further, let me bring upon Manish Bhai and Sita Ben. Manish Bhai, over to you to carry on the discussion for this, and I will be in the background doing some chats.
Thank you, Nisit Bhai. Very, very important topic, viewers, for today. Namaste. Hope you are well and enjoying where you are, especially in UK. We've been enjoying 2 bank holidays this weekend. It's been good fun, and hope the fun carries on. And caste system is a very important topic even today. It's keep on making headlines in India, and it's still ongoing system in a way. So there was Varna Vyavastha, as mentioned in Rig Veda and Purusha Sukta, and that turned into caste system, which is the Jati Vyavastha, where there is a hierarchical and lower and higher, and all these things came into being. What happened there? How did this came about, Sita?
Very interesting topic. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we have clear sort of mention of different kinds of people, basically. So you get Brahmins who are not because they're born into a Brahmin family, but because they are very knowledgeable, they're very pure, they're very, they're very good in the role of being a teacher or an advisor to the community and to the family and all of that. So that makes you a Brahmin. And same with all of the different sort of so-called castes, the different groups of people are, people who are warriors, people who are merchants, people who are servants. All of these people have a role in society, and the Bhagavad Gita makes absolutely no mention of this caste is higher or better than this particular caste. And it's very, very unfortunate that we have scriptures of lower authority called the Manusmriti, which sort of in a way hijacked this idea, because they think that then society needs to be structured in a way where If you are born into a Brahmin family, you are automatically a Brahmin. If you are born into a Shudra family, you're automatically a Shudra. So this hereditary angle started to creep in, which is not right, because every individual, when they are born, has their own particular talents, their own things that they are good at or not good at. So it's a very dangerous situation, because people who are in the role, meant to be in the role of teachers and advisors, are supposed, if you're born into a teacher's family and suppose you're not very good at being a teacher, you're very, taking on a very responsible job and you're not able to do it properly. Or even more scary is, suppose, there's a king and then the son is meant to be the next in line. Suppose he's not suitable to be a king, then what? So it creates a lot of, dangerous, difficult situations. And the other very, controversial, very, very awful thing which happened in the name of the caste is this hierarchical angle to it. So this idea that, some castes are meant to be better than other castes. And it's absolutely horrendous, because it goes against the whole philosophy of Hinduism, which is that everyone is divine. It doesn't matter where you are in society, what role you fulfill in society, what kind of family you're born into. Everyone is spirit, and it's incredibly egalitarian. But then this awful idea of hereditary hierarchical caste system crept in and has done a tremendous amount of damage in India. Even to this day, it's caused so much damage, and it takes a long, long time for mindsets to change. But I think hopefully now we are on a winning streak, and hopefully things are starting to improve. It was, in fact, a socioeconomic failing, this idea. It's a human failing. All of us make errors. If you look across every civilization of the world, they will have done things that may be good and maybe not so good, because we are all human and we make mistakes. I suppose the only sort of benefit is that we only hurt ourselves. We didn't go out and hurt other communities and other countries, but we did a lot of damage to ourselves through the hereditary and hierarchical caste system. There's absolutely nothing wrong with channeling people into doing what they are good at. And that's the whole purpose of the education system that we have, is for us to figure out what our children are good at, what they don't like so much, and stream them accordingly. We don't say that, oh, this person is best suited to be a doctor, so he's better than somebody who's supposed to be a teacher or somebody else. So there's no hereditary angle to it. There's no hierarchical angle to it. That's what the Bhagavad Gita was talking about. And I remember that many times Dad was approached by couples, young Hindu couples, who would say, suppose the bride is meant to be a higher caste family and the groom is meant to be from a lower caste family. And they would come to Dad and say, is this going to cause a problem? Is this going to cause an issue? Are we allowed to marry? And my dad would sort of tell them, look at the Bhagavad Gita. Is the person that you're going to be married, of true nature? Is he sound? Is he wise? Is he good and knowledgeable? That's essentially what matters, is the qualities that that person possesses, and do they sort of match with your qualities? So this idea of caste as being somebody higher and somebody lower is a tremendous, atrocious mistake that happened on the Indian subcontinent. And we are moving away from it, to a tremendous scale. We live in a diaspora. We don't just live in India anymore. And when you look at the UK, for example, you hardly see any sort of idea of it being, hierarchical. We don't say the Brahmin caste is better or worse than, the Shudra caste or the Kshatriya caste or whatever caste it is. They're just different clans. They're different communities which get together and they do community activities together, celebrate festivals together. There's no conflict or, confrontation between the different clan groups. We just all live together in harmony, and that's what it's meant to all be about. So this idea of hereditary hierarchical caste system is atrocious. It's getting wiped out. And just one last thing to add is, the socioeconomic landscape in India has changed dramatically and is continuing to change dramatically, with this whole boom in technology. And it's really sort of shifting this old stodgy idea of, suppose you're, a very poor living in a poor village in India, and you can't afford to send your child to school, then the father is in a way forced to teach his son to his own profession, whether it be pottery or farming or whatever. So that poor child is then stuck in that profession because that's all he knows. But now, the world is opening up, it's becoming much more global. And now we are able to say the potter's son doesn't need to be a potter anymore. He can go out and become an IT technician. He can travel around the world. He can become a doctor. He can become so many wonderful things. So the possibilities are really opening up, and that gives us a chance to really remove this idea of a hereditary and hierarchical caste. And hopefully it'll be a thing of the past that nobody needs to worry about anymore. Sorry, Manishbhai, yes.
Smita, wonderful insight into this caste system, which is on the way out, but it's still making headlines, it's still out there, and it's still causing many problems in different parts of the world. And what happened in this, basically Varna Vyavastha was just four people divided in four groups. So when it became caste system or Jati Vyavastha, there was so much hierarchy. Even the Brahmins, in the Brahmins, there were upper Brahmins and lower Brahmins, and they used to give each other a number. We are number 5, number 4, whatever. And such a horrendous system. And when India got independence, they tried to, undo this historical injustice. Because if you look at it, people in the lower rungs, they were crushed by this caste system. They were not allowed to do they were stuck in their jobs, and they were not allowed to move up the social ladder and do the better jobs. And they were basically crushed. And to undo that historical injustice, they brought in a system called a reservation system, where there was some jobs were reserved for poor lower caste people. And that is still continued, and that has helped people from lower caste come up. But now, it's still continuing, and it's always a controversial topic. What is your point of view on this, Sitaben?
Yeah, it is controversial. It is awful. But another thing that we must also remember is, we always blame India and the Indian subcontinent for this idea of caste system, but it's something which is also being practiced in the UK for the last few hundred years. We had not caste system, but a class system, which was very evident. So you had the upper classes, the middle class, and the lower class. And that's something that was there as well. So we can't just point the finger at India all the time, although we did a tremendous amount of damage. This idea of stratification of society and some people being higher or lower, it's not just restricted to the Indian subcontinent. It's something that's happened around the world. It's a huge human failing. And along with other sort of huge human failings, like this idea of gender inequality, race inequality, all of these issues are really coming to the fore in the world today. So we're living in a we're very lucky to live in a very good time where, the population is recognizing all of these injustices which are being practiced in the name of caste, gender, race, religion, all of these. And it's becoming much more egalitarian. People are becoming much more aware of all of these issues. And, now people were shy to be gay, before, but now you have like the Pride Festival. People are proud to be of that particular inclination. So it's wonderful that the world is evolving. The human mindset is evolving, and hopefully things will just keep getting better and better towards a much more egalitarian society. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Manishbhai, have you got any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Sitaben. Yes, it's been improving, and it's a work in progress. But as Jai said time and again, it's not, caste system is not Hinduism. It is an atrocity committed in the name of religion, but it's not approved by any scripture of authority. And that's what we got to remember. And it's about education and letting people know that this is no longer acceptable in the world that we live in, and we need to move towards an egalitarian society. And it's happening naturally in India with upliftment of social classes and people education system. You see, nobody, hardly anyone doing job of their forefathers, and that was the basis of caste system, that people were doing job of their forefathers and they picked up those skills from their forefathers. But nowadays that's not happening. It's no longer relevant, this system, but it is again and again used by foreign religions and people to denounce Hinduism. Your take on that, people using caste system for their own gain, Sitaben?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things because Hinduism is so open and vast and promotes the equality of all living things, not just even human beings, the whole animal kingdom, all living kingdom. And this is something where people see it as a weakness, and they always confuse it with something to do with a religious injunction or a religious teaching, as Manish Bhai said. But it's not. It's a human social failing. It's a socio-economic problem that happened. The whole sort of idea of funneling people into the right profession degenerated into this hereditary and hierarchical caste system, and it's a huge problem which is now starting to eventually resolve itself. People are no longer able to, wanting to put up with these barriers between different communities, and one community considers itself to be superior than another community. There were horrendous things which were done. I remember, some of the scriptures would say if you're from an untouchable caste, then you're not allowed to enter a temple, you're not allowed to listen to the Vedas, the scriptures of authority, and if you do, that molten lead is poured into your ears. These horrendous acts which were being done in the name of religion. That's absolutely awful, because it's nothing to do with the religion. The religion is all about the depth of the philosophy of everything being divine, everything being spiritual. And this is in stark contrast to that. So we have to be very careful and not confuse this atrocity in the name of religion as not being a religious teaching or anything to do with Hinduism at all. It's a social problem.
Thank you, Sitaben. Colin Moffat said the so-called untouchables need to be mentioned, and they do need to be mentioned, because what happened in this caste system is people who were doing lower jobs, or say cleaning the gutters and etc., or making shoes and stuff, they were considered untouchable. The people of the higher rung of society, they said, oh, we wouldn't even, because they felt they were dirty, they wouldn't even touch them. And such untouchability came in, which has now wiped out, thankfully. But what's your take on this, Sitaben?
Yeah, it's absolutely horrendous that people are even called untouchables. And it reminds me very much of what Gandhi did, because he did, although, there's a lot of controversy around what Gandhi did on the whole, there were some wonderful social renovations that he did. And one of the things is he called untouchables Harijans, which means the children of God. So he tried to elevate the status of the untouchables and make sure that they're not seen in such a negative light. All the stigma attached to being an untouchable, he tried to remove that. So you have to sort of look at the positives and negatives of all of these political personalities, but that's something hopefully positive that Gandhi put in place.
Thank you, Sitaben. Yes, he did coin the term Harijan, which means these are the people of God. They are doing the great service for the society and they shouldn't be looked down on. And we thank Gandhiji for that wonderful work. The next question, is, we get some examples in our Ramayana Mahabharata. The two examples that come up is this Eklavya losing the thumb, being asked to give his thumb as Guru Dakshina to Dronacharya, and that thereby Dronacharya stopped him being a warrior from lower caste. And the second example is Karna as well. He, I think, was raised by a charioteer, and then he wanted to be a warrior. And Again, he faced problems, but he ended up being a warrior. Was there any, should people be restricted from doing jobs? That was never any, I think in the earlier Vedas, that was allowed, and somehow this came into being that you cannot do that. What's your take on this, Sita?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to remember that a lot of these stories of Hinduism, a lot of the aspects of it reflect what society was like at that time. And that's how, these aspects of these kind of stories work, which show a great deal of inequality in the sense that somebody is not allowed to take on the profession that they're good at because that's not the birth, the family that they were born into. I think it just reflects what society was thinking at the time. So these stories, they do have, especially the Ramayana and Mahabharata, we do consider them to be itihas, which means history. But the big caveat is there is a lot of sort of mythology and stuff interwoven into these stories. So we have to sort of dig deep and see what do we think is actually true and what isn't, and also see it as a reflection of human society and human thinking at that time. So a lot of these stories in the Mahabharata, as Manish Bhai was saying, of somebody who was a very, very good archer, extremely talented archer. He was not allowed to become an archer because of his birth and his social ranking, which is absolutely horrendous. And we have to sort of look at it as something to reflect on and say, look, we've really moved on from those kinds of times, because the stigma attached to being born from a particular family is hopefully but getting removed, in the current world. We're feeling much more open, we're much more broader in our thinking, and we're not restricting ourselves to being farmers and potters and whatever other profession our forefathers did. We are no longer restricted by that. In fact, especially, if somebody has the opportunity, from a potter's family or a farmer's family to become a doctor, they'll all say hooray, and they'll have a big party. They would love the opportunity for their children to do something beyond what their forefathers were doing. It's lovely to kind of have this idea of tradition and continuity, but it's also a case of making sure that you're not seen as being upper or lower. You do what you are good at. And by, having the opportunity to become a doctor or a nurse or whatever it is, and doing an amazing job, means that you are a much more productive member of society. You're really benefiting society, because in the time of a hereditary hierarchical caste, it was actually tremendously damaging for society, because people were taking on jobs that they were not necessarily good at and not necessarily suited to, which meant that all sorts of human failings were taking place. Society actually becomes weaker. But when you're able to say, look, I'm good at this, I'm good at music, I'm good at science, or whatever it is, and then you do that as your life's work, then what a tremendous benefit to society you will be, not only because you are supporting the community in a much better way, but you feel better about yourself. You feel content that you're doing something that you are good at, and it makes you feel confident about your own abilities as well. So when you're forced into doing a job that you're not good at and you don't like, it's very, very negative for yourself and for the rest of the community. And I think we're lucky to be living in a time, as I said, where, that's hopefully not as prevalent as it used to be.
Very well put, Sita Ben. We got some nice comments, which I'm going to share. Dustin's Unbelievably Spiritual channel saying all religions mitigate against the cultural problem. For example, Zen is about letting go, and Japan is very rigid society with strict social conventions. Donald Trump is saying all human beings are same and equal. We all have undistinguishable red blood and we all fart. So we are all same and equal, and we got Vedas which proclaim that we are all spiritual beings on a material journey. So staying with caste system, or trying to wrap it up, if we, it was based on people doing jobs of their forefathers, now that is no longer valid. So how should people choose what jobs should they be doing? Because now it's all an open game and anyone can do anything. What is your take on that? How should people choose their job? What work they should be doing? Sitabe.
Yeah, no, it's a really valid question. And I think we're lucky that the world has evolved so much that our education system kind of does that for us in a way. Because, you know, suppose you're very good at sport. You may not be particularly academic, but you may be very good at sport. You may be given a scholarship to do something sports related and become a very good sports person. Or, you know, you may find that, you know, because the wonderful thing is, as a child, you're exposed to all these kinds of different disciplines, you know, academic disciplines as well as non-academic disciplines. And the child will start feeling an inclination towards a particular choice. They might love art, or they might love science, they might love maths, whatever it is. And, you know, the system, especially in the UK, is very good at sort of saying, okay, well, then at the next sort of hurdle, which is your A-levels, you can funnel your, you know, your preferences, and you can pick A-levels which are most suited to you and what you want to do. So that's the wonderful thing. I suppose, you know, in Indian families, there's still the thing of, you know, you must choose something which can give you a good profession, which is still around. But you can see there's a practical angle to it, because, you know, if you do law or something at university, then you can automatically become a lawyer. If you do pharmacy, you automatically become a pharmacist. So I guess that's the only sort of pressure, in the sense that Indian families would impose on their children, is make sure you choose something which is, you know, going to be useful or valuable to you in your future career. So I guess that's the only thing. I mean, I was very lucky that my parents didn't do that to me. I did something which didn't really have a particular profession behind it, anthropology, looking at society and culture and all of that. So I was lucky in that sense. But I know many Indian families where, you know, people say you must, you know, do medicine, you must do, you know, become a dentist or whatever it is. But it's nothing to do with hereditary hierarchical caste. It's just trying to look out for their children to make sure that they do something which has a solid profession at the end of it. So that's the only profession, only sort of pressure, and there's no imposition that, you know, you should become a farmer because your great-great-grandparents were farmers at all, especially not in this country.
Yes, I think Sitaben, you touched upon a very important topic there, that Indian parents try to guide their children into a particular, you know, profession. And although they're well meant, sometimes they put undue pressures, and sometimes they are pushing their children into a kind of job that maybe they're not suitable to, or they shouldn't be getting into. Should they be looking at what is the, you know, skills and likes of their children, and maybe be more open to the ideas that different jobs are all important for the society. It's not just about being a, you know, highest paid individual in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's really important to, you know, to address that, because, you know, obviously Indian people love the idea of, you know, their children doing well. And of course, everyone from every community wants their children to do well. And they obviously want their children to take on professions which are well paid and, you know, are very sort of highly qualified, which is understandable as well. But I suppose it's one of those difficult balances that every family has to strike, in the sense that, is the child happy with that choice? Are they actually good at it? Is it something they want to do? Versus, do they have a solid career at the end of their university and their studies? It's one of those very sort of difficult balances that every family has to face. The other thing that Dad often sort of raised is, you know, we always try and focus on, you know, teaching our children things where they can, you know, earn lots of money, and that's a great thing, because one of the aims of Hindu life is artha, which is acquiring wealth. So there's nothing wrong with that. But also we should not forget the sort of more holistic approach, the more holistic teachings which come from learning about religion, learning about spirituality. That's an incredibly valuable asset for your child as they grow up. And it's something that we tend to overlook, but it's incredibly important, because we are often raised to think, yes, you know, you get a lovely career and, you know, you earn lots of money, you get a nice big house, a nice car, you go on nice holidays, and you think that's it and you've made it. But a lot of people forget the much more, in a way, important aspect of spiritual teaching, spiritual inheritance, which is very important to start your child off from a very young age. Teach them the importance of, you know, looking after others, caring for others, not just thinking about yourself, but looking after those around you. It's incredibly important to remember that holistic angle, the holistic skills of being empathetic, being kind, being generous, which are not necessarily academic things, but they are hopefully something that will help that person along their journey through life. Help them become respected members of the community, help them to take a more sort of, you know, balanced approach to life and not be sort of, you know, completely headstrong in sort of earning loads of money and thinking that's all there is to life. Maybe we'll encourage them when they retire to say, maybe it's time for me to retire. I've made enough money. Maybe I should now focus on higher, more spiritual aspirations rather than, you know, working, you know, dying in the saddle and, you know, continuing to work and just thinking about money your whole life. It's really important to have that sort of inheritance taught to our children right from a very young age. Manish Bhai, have you got any thoughts on that?
Very well put, Sitaben. No, nothing further to add. I think you put it very well. We end this conversation on caste system for now. As we say, you know, as Jai Bhai said, caste system is not Hinduism. It's not approved by any scriptural authority. It is a social failing, and we've been improving on it, and it's slowly fading away and fading away with time. And as people, you know, the social and economic situation improve, it will be going away, and the new structure will be more democratic system where people will be able to choose what job they want to do. We'll rest this topic for now and move on to the viewers' question. So first question from Nitin is, what is the importance of Vastu Shastra in Hinduism? And then he asked, can I hang a painting of Arjuna and Krishna on the chariot in the battlefield? Vastu Shastra and a painting of Krishna and Arjuna.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know too much about Vastu Shastra, but I guess it's very similar to this idea of Feng Shui and, you know, making sure your house is balanced and the energies are right and all of that. So I think the really important thing is do what, you know, what makes you feel happy, follow your heart. If you really want to hang up the picture of Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield, I personally don't see anything wrong with that. It's wonderful if it reminds you of God on a daily basis. And yeah, just keep your home clean, keep it tidy, don't clutter it up with loads of rubbish. Just look after your home. And if you like this idea of Vastu Shastra, which is, you know, keeping things in certain positions around your home and making sure the light is in the right angles and all of that, then wonderful and good for you. I mean, that's if that's what your heart wants you to do, then please do it. But it's one of those things that it's not an injunction of Hinduism. If you don't want to do it, you don't necessarily have to do it. It doesn't make you a bad Hindu in any way. But if you'd like to do it, then it's there for us to use.
Wonderful answer there, Sitaben. So yeah, just my take on it. It was a kind of practical advice from olden times where, you know, they said, okay, you need to have your door facing the sun so you get good light in your, so it's this kind of rules were there as a part of Vastu Shastras that maybe for that period of time it was quite good and maybe brought you good luck. And I think it's about what is practical for you as well and how it works. And if you like it, yeah, follow it. And picture of Arjuna and Krishna, wonderful. If it reminds you of Bhagavad Gita, what can be bad about it? We take a next question from Lohit Suvarna. He's saying, why some believe in reincarnation and some not? And both claim it's their true religion. Is it possible to be both right? So he's saying, you know, Abrahamic religions don't believe in reincarnation, and Dharmic traditions do. Is it why is it so? And is it possible for both of them to be right, Sitabin?
Yes, a really interesting subject, because this idea of reincarnation is so intrinsic to all the Indian religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, although they may use different terminology and all of that. All of the Indian religions believe that the soul continues after the body dies. And it's a great comfort for, you know, when you're going through a grieving process or whatever, it can really help you through that process. So it's wonderful that we have this idea. And to be honest, even in the West, you know, some of you may well be aware that in the West, this idea was actually also prevalent in ancient Greece and all of that. All this Socrates and, you know, all of these ancient Greek philosophers, they believed that something continued to live after the body dies. So it was something that was there. But I suppose, you know, the Abrahamic religions, they promoted this idea of heaven and hell, and that sort of took over and, you know, took the limelight away from this idea of reincarnation. But it's something that's been there for, you know, thousands of years. And I think, you know, because the world is moving towards a much more scientific way of looking at things, people always question, you know, is there any proof or any evidence of reincarnation? And my dad has obviously done hundreds of talks on reincarnation, talking about the scientific research done by Professor Ian Stevenson, where he looked at over 3,000 cases of children who vividly remembered their past lives. And the findings he came up with are absolutely fascinating. For example, you know, somebody who may have died from a gunshot, the child is born sometimes with a birthmark exactly where the gunshot happened. So there's incredible links between, you know, lives, which Professor Ian Stevenson was able to find out. And the details were not just, hazy and, you know, just about fit. They fit perfectly for these 3,000 children that he studied. And we are, as Hindus, have to be incredibly careful. We don't like to blow trumpets and say, you know, hooray, this proves reincarnation. We are very sort of, you know, level-headed, and we say this suggests the possibility of reincarnation, and it's up to you to make up your own mind if you think there's any validity to it or not. But even atheists like, I think David Hume, it was, who said, if there was meant to be any sort of connection between two lives, then reincarnation is probably the most likely option, you know, the most logical conclusion. So we have to think for ourselves. Hinduism never imposes anything on anybody, but we say, you know, that we strongly believe that there is this idea of reincarnation, but it's up to you what you think.
Yes, just adding to that, Sitaben, Jayabhai mentioned previously that in Western society, the idea of reincarnation was prevalent as well. Greek philosophers believed in reincarnation, and that was quite, you know, quite widely acceptable idea. And it was taken out by Christianity when I think they met up in some 200 years after Jesus was gone, and they decided to take out idea of reincarnation from, and just present two life scenario to get people to accept whatever they were teaching. And I think Islam just followed the Catholic Christianity's idea and followed on with idea of heaven and hell and no reincarnation. But as Sitaben, you know, mentioned, and there is plenty of proof out there. And whoever wants to do research, I think there's to be a lot of research happening in this area. And the research is suggesting that reincarnation is for real. And that's where we stand. And it's not like just the Hindus are being reborn. We see the reincarnation cases appearing in all different religious peoples. So that is suggesting that it's universal idea, and it is happening and it's real. But many, you know, people who come from the different background, they will not accept it because it's very foreign to them. How can this happen? And that is the reason. But there is plenty of, it needs focused research and focused approach to it. And if a mainstream media pick it up in big way, it can become very acceptable idea. And we see that in society around us, even Western society, many people accept reincarnation. So it's a very popular idea, and I think many people do accept it. Sitaben, further to add on that?
Yeah, I think also rather than non-Indic religions also not having this idea within their thinking, another sort of thinking is this materialistic agenda of the world today. You know, people of no religions, they think, if you can prove something physically, then only it's real. And, this idea of reincarnation is incredibly metaphysical. So how can you provide physical evidence for something that is metaphysical? So atheists and materialistic people, who have the materialistic approach would think, well, surely that's rubbish. All we know is that we live for a certain amount of time and we die, and then who knows, that's it, that's the end of the line. So yes, again, because it's a metaphysical way of looking at things, a lot of the materialistic agenda would maybe not like the idea of reincarnation, that there's something metaphysical that continues beyond the death of somebody who's passed away. But yeah, very, very interesting. And you see lots and lots of very interesting case studies. I know Dad mentioned a lot about the case of James, who was a little boy and he had constant nightmares of feeling like he was on fire and he was burning and he was burning, and he would wake up and feel completely traumatized. And he had this recurring dream. And then they found out that actually he was remembering his past life because he was, one of the fighters in World War II, and he died in a plane crash. His plane had crashed and he was burning. So that sort of vivid sort of sensation was still in his subconscious, and he kept having dreams about it. And it's amazing that you can actually find this connection between two different lives. There's no sort of genetic link necessarily. There's no other link between these two lives. So what else can it be? So very, very interesting area to explore.
True, Sitaben. Yes, that's a very popular case. And there are many, it's a continuous research. There are many researchers working, so even today, and there are many cases still coming up today. So it's ongoing research, and this is happening. So if anybody is interested in this, and even if you're skeptical, you can research on it, and there is a possibility to do research and find out for yourself if this is real or not. So that's the great thing about it. We take a next question from Rahul MG. He's saying, what's your take on law of attraction, Sitaben?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's come up in the last sort of, decade or so, this idea of law of attraction, which is sort of pointing to a more metaphysical way of looking at the world. This idea that, if you think about something and you dream about it, it will eventually come to you. And I think there probably is some kind of truth to it because, especially in Hinduism, we believe strongly that there is something metaphysical as well as the material world that we're living in. And the power of the mind is something that we really underestimate. And people often say we only use a tiny fraction of our mind in our day-to-day living. So maybe the power of our mind is out there. The potential is there for us to use it for our benefit. And whatever sort of dreams and goals that you have, it's really, really important to focus your energies on it and think about it, dream about it. And hopefully it will come to you in probably, in a way that you don't expect. These things always tend to happen when you don't expect them to happen. When you're pushing and pushing and you really want it to happen tomorrow, it won't happen that way. It will happen in its own natural way. And it reminds me very much of what Swami Vivekananda said many times. He said, if you want to be successful in life, think about one idea, make it your own, dream it, breathe it, live it. And that's how you will be successful in life. And in a way, that's very sort of synergetic to this idea of the law of attraction. If you really, really want something, put your heart and mind and soul into it. You have to really be dedicated, and you can achieve anything. So the power of our mind is there, and hopefully, all of us will get there one day and make use of the great potential of the mind and the metaphysical world in attracting the things that we want, hopefully positive things, nothing bad. Manish Bhai, do you have any thoughts on that?
I fully agree with that, Sita Ben. Can't go wrong with Swami Vivekananda ji. So we'll rest it there. We take the next question from Saurabh Jadhav. He's saying, where can I learn about Vedas, Vedanta, Puranas in English? I'm not well versed with Sanskrit. Social media is the best place to go. Sita Ben, what's your take on this?
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I guess it depends which aspect of Hindu scripture you want to focus on. I mean, if you want to look at the Puranas, the stories, there's hundreds of thousands of millions, if not, of them around. And they're wonderful to look at. If you're a child, this idea of Amar Chitra Katha is out there. That's what I'm reading to my daughter these days at bedtime. They're wonderful, wonderful stories about, colourful mythology of Hinduism. When you want to move on from that, I guess you don't need to. That's the wonderful thing about Hinduism is we are not fixated on scriptures. The main thing is that you learn or understand the depth of the philosophy which is there. You don't need to know Sanskrit to understand the philosophy of Hinduism. So turn to modern prophets. You don't need to go back to dusty old books of the Vedas. Go to modern prophets. Go to people like Raman Maharshi, Swami Vivekananda, who are able to explain this depth in modern language, in English, in very, very recent times. So we're incredibly lucky we've got these amazing enlightened beings who didn't live that long ago, who are able to explain in English the wonderful gems of Hindu philosophy. So yeah, please do look there. You don't need to look at the ancient scriptures or Vedas to understand it.
Yes, just to add that there is plenty of material on YouTube. So, and some really wonderful stuff from Swami Sarva Priyananda is out there. He's talking, especially if you're interested in Vedanta and Gnana Yoga and such things, there's some wonderful material out there. So do explore that. There is on web, there is resources like Ramakrishna Mission websites or Ramakrishna Vivekananda Info website, where there is some of these scriptures available, and there's a Sanskrit documents website as well. So there's plenty of resources out there. If you even just do a Google search for certain things, you can easily find PDF of English translations and stuff. So there's plenty of material out there on the web. You just need to dig a bit deep and you will find wonderful stuff there. But if you want to learn Hinduism in a structured manner, there is our Hinduism course, and Jay Bhai did 10 lectures on the basics of Hinduism. So I would suggest you start with those and then take it further. We take E. Ajay Reddy has interestingly observed a thing about caste system. He's saying, here my Christian convert friend who comes from scheduled class tells me there are caste specific churches and upper caste won't enter lower caste church. Oh my God. And he's saying, and Muslims also won't marry into other Muslim subcaste. If other religions are also following caste system, sorry, I've just so strongly, why is to blame only Hindus for it? They left Hinduism and still following it. It is true. I think this is happening. I think it was mentioned in the God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy in that book as well, that Christians are also following caste system in a way. And this just goes to show that it is a social problem. It's not a religious system. It's because it was in Indian society, it's linked with Hinduism, but it's got nothing to do with Hinduism. It's not Hinduism, caste system is not Hinduism. It's a social failing, and hopefully with time it will go away. Sita, further to add on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's completely true. That's what we were discussing earlier, is it's not something restricted to the Indian subcontinent. It's a universal human failing that people try to strategize, stratify society, put people at higher or lower rungs of society, which is a massive problem. And we are hopefully at least acknowledging that this is a problem and trying to do something about it. And another thing to, I guess, raise is this idea that Hindus who have historically been treated very badly through being called untouchables, not allowed, to, do basic things like go to the temple and, engage in rituals and all of these things. For them, they might feel a great sense of anger towards Hinduism. They might think this is Hinduism's fault. Maybe I should go out and convert to another religion. So in a way, you see that they're really frustrated and angry, and they might leave Hinduism for it. And it's a shame because it's nothing to do with Hinduism. It's a social failing that was happening across India, but also across the world. And yeah, hopefully we're trying to acknowledge it and resolve it in the best way that we can. It takes time, but hopefully we're getting there.
Wonderful. We are coming close to the 3 o'clock mark where we'll be stopping. So we'll take 1 or 2 more questions. Arnav Bose has said, Swami Vivekananda talked about the need for ridding Hinduism from superstition and mystery mongering. How important do you think this is in today's India? How do you think this can be achieved, Sitaben?
Yeah, it's a massive problem, this idea of superstition, and if you don't do this particular prayer or this mantra, something bad is going to happen to you. People tend to go to astrologers to try and make sense of what's going to happen in their future. They wear all sorts of gemstones and rings on their fingers. It's a massive problem that's happening in India and also across the world. This belief that you have to follow certain things, otherwise bad things will happen to you. These superstitions really cloud our understanding of reality, and people tend to turn to them when they're feeling very vulnerable, like they want their child to do well at school, or they want a good husband or a good wife. They turn to these kinds of superstitions to try and do some kind of magic mongering to see if that's going to help resolve their condition. But the teachings of Swami Vivekananda around this are incredibly important, and people have not really taken them to heart yet. And it's something that we need to keep pressing through our broadcast, that this is not the way out. It's actually a sign of weakness that you're relying on stones or rocks in the sky to dictate your future. Swami Vivekananda said, don't let rocks in the sky dictate your future. Say that I'm going to control the rocks from my position, and I'm going to do what I want to do in my life without being controlled by stars and planets and all of this astrology. I feel in control of my life. I may make mistakes, but that's part of my human journey. I may make mistakes, which, these planets or forces have nothing to do with, but I'm going to resolve my own human condition in my own way. And that's the most empowering way to live, because superstitions make us weak and believing in ourselves make us strong. So we really need to rub this out of, the Indian mindset that superstitions and astrology and rocks and planets and what they do can actually control our lives. Just let it go. Don't believe in it. There's so much of that parading around, especially, for example, one of them is, you can't leave your house or do anything when there is a solar eclipse. And, it's a very, very inauspicious day and all of that. But when you look at the logic and the reasoning behind it, it makes you make sense of it and say, it doesn't really apply anymore. So, when there was the time of a solar eclipse, many people over hundreds of thousands of years who didn't know what it was would look up at the sky when the day became dark, and they would become blind from it. So, people started saying, don't leave your house, lock all the blinds and doors, don't look up at the sky, it's an inauspicious day, just to save people from losing their eyesight. So there's so many examples of these kinds of things, which now parade around as superstitions and all of this. And we need to understand them for, where they came from and move on from it, because we're living in a much more modern world. We understand what an eclipse is now. We have all the technology to, understand what's going on. So we don't need to say eclipse day is an inauspicious day anymore. So we need to really move away from that kind of thinking. Manishbhai? Any thoughts?
Wonderful answer, Sitaben. We take the last question. And the question is, were Indian rishis able to see past, present, and future through their intense sadhana? What is your take on that?
So it's very difficult to know what they thought and what they experienced. But a lot of these ancient rishis, when they became enlightened, they sort of developed these powers or siddhis to be able to see things that we normal human beings can't necessarily see. But the important thing to remember is that, they focus on their enlightenment. That's the big jackpot, not trying to predict the future or see the past or the future or whatever. So these siddhis are something that can happen when you are successful in meditation, but the scriptures tell us strongly, please do not get distracted by these, because you just become a magician then, and you don't become an enlightened being, you become distracted. So focus on your path of enlightenment, because that's the biggest jackpot, and you're silly to let go of that for being able to do magic tricks, basically. Manish, any thoughts?
No, I agree with you completely, Sitaben. Yes, so I've read also that, and we see, Sri Ramakrishna also trying, mentioning this thing that he saw what's going to happen in future. And so there are, people, once they spiritually progress, they are able to see these things. But for normal people, I don't think that's quite easy, and it's better to focus on spiritual progress rather than such things and try to be sidetracked. With this, we'll try and close this one. I'll share the quote by Swami Vivekananda. So the quote is, "Religion has no business to formulate social laws and insist on the difference between beings, because its aim and end is to obliterate all such fictions and monstrosities." So very, relevant to today's topic. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and have a good time, and hope to see you next time. Thank you all for your wonderful comments. Sorry, we don't have Nisit Bhai with us today to share some of your quotes, etc. Do have a look at our YouTube channel and website for the resources on Hinduism and the Hinduism course. Thank you, everyone, and we say goodbye. Bye from Sitaben also.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Manish Bhai, for managing everything. Thank you.